This authorized audiobook of The Quantum Soul, Bridging Science and Spirituality for Awakening 6, Cosmic Soul Journey, Book 7, is presented by Soul Sanctuary Audio. Copyright Seraphina Hartwell. Introduction. Awakening to the Quantum Soul. In a quiet cafe, nestled between towering skyscrapers, Dr. Elena Vasquez sat with her notebook open, pen poised above paper. She wasn't writing equations or research notes. This time, she was trying to articulate something far more elusive. For years, Elena had dedicated herself to unraveling the mysteries of quantum mechanics, but lately, her work felt incomplete. The equations explained particles and waves, superposition and entanglement, but they didn't answer the questions that kept her awake at night. Asterisk, who am I? What is consciousness? And why does it feel like reality bends when I focus on it? Asterisk. Elena glanced out the window, where raindrops traced chaotic patterns down the glass. Her mind wandered back to an experiment she'd conducted months ago, a simple double-slit setup to demonstrate wave-particle quality. But this time, something strange happened. When she observed the results closely, not only did the photons behave differently, but so did she. It was as if her very observation shifted her internal state, aligning her thoughts with possibilities she hadn't considered before. That moment marked the beginning of her journey into what she now called the quantum soul, a synthesis of science and spirituality that promised to illuminate humanity's deepest truths. This book isn't just about physics, it's about awakening. It's about understanding how you, too, can step into your role as a co-creator of reality. Through these pages, we'll explore groundbreaking discoveries in quantum physics alongside ancient wisdom from spiritual traditions. Together, we'll uncover how interconnectedness shapes our lives, how your thoughts influence the fabric of reality, and how energy flows through every aspect of existence. Whether you're skeptical of metaphysical ideas or yearning for evidence-based insights, this exploration will challenge your assumptions and inspire new ways of being. By the end, you won't just see the world differently, you'll experience yourself as part of its infinite potential. Part 1. Foundations, exploring the intersection of science and spirituality. In a world where science and spirituality often seem at odds, this section invites you to step off a vast ocean, its waves whispering secrets of both matter and spirit. We embark on an intellectual odyssey to uncover the hidden threads that weave together these seemingly disparate realms. The journey begins with a bold proposition. What if quantum physics, the most enigmatic branch of modern science, holds the key to understanding ancient spiritual truths? This is not merely academic exploration. It is an awakening. Through foundational concepts like wave-particle duality, entanglement, and the observer effect, we will peel back layers of reality to reveal how deeply interconnected everything truly is. 1. Introduction. Awakening 2. The Quantum Soul. The room was quiet, save for the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Dr. Elena Ruiz sat at her desk, staring down at a photograph clutched in her hands. A snapshot of her late grandmother, taken decades ago during one of their afternoons spent tending to the garden together. The memory stirred something deep within her, an ache that felt both personal and universal. She could still hear Abuela's voice, soft but firm, as she explained how every plant, every blade of grass, every particle of soil was connected, not just metaphorically but fundamentally. Everything is alive, Abuela had said once, crouching beside young Elena with dirt-streaked fingers. Even the things you cannot see. Elena smiled faintly at the recollection, then exhaled sharply, setting the photo aside. Her mind wandered back to the lecture hall, where she'd spoken earlier that day about quantum mechanics, the strange, counterintuitive world where particles behaved like waves and reality seemed malleable. It was fascinating work, intellectually rigorous and endlessly challenging. Yet, as much as she loved it, there were moments when even science felt incomplete, like trying to solve a puzzle, missing its most crucial piece. She leaned back in her chair, letting her gaze drift toward the window. Outside, the city buzzed with life, cars streaming past, people hurrying along sidewalks, neon signs flickering against the twilight sky. To anyone else, this scene might appear ordinary, predictable even. But Elena saw it differently now. Beneath the surface lay hidden layers of complexity, photons dancing through space-time, electrons spinning in probabilistic orbits, invisible forces shaping existence in ways no human eye could directly perceive. And yet, despite all her training, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to understand, something beyond equations and experiments. It wasn't until recently that she began to suspect what that missing piece might be. A series of coincidences, or perhaps synchronicities, had led her here to this moment of reckoning. First came the dreams, vivid, recurring visions of herself standing on the edge of a vast ocean, watching waves crash against the shore, while whispers carried on the wind urged her to listen. Then there were the conversations with colleagues who spoke of physics not as cold calculation but as poetry, a language capable of describing not only matter but spirit. Finally, there was the book, an old, dog-eared copy of Fritjof Capra's The Tao of Physics, left behind by a student, that challenged everything she thought she knew. That book introduced her to the concept of the quantum soul, a term she initially dismissed as New Age nonsense. But the more she read, the harder it became to ignore the parallels between modern physics and ancient wisdom traditions. Could it be possible? Could the same principles governing subatomic particles also explain consciousness, interconnectedness, and the very fabric of reality itself? Her musings were interrupted by the chime of her phone, a reminder that tomorrow would bring another busy day of teaching and research. Sighing, Elena reached for her laptop, opening a blank document titled Notes for My Future Self. As she typed, her thoughts crystallized into words. Imagine a world where science and spirituality are not adversaries, but allies. The mysteries of the cosmos can be explored not only through telescopes and microscopes, but also through meditation and intuition. This is the promise of the quantum soul, a bridge spanning the realms of matter and spirit, offering us new ways to understand ourselves and our place in the universe. At first glance, the idea may seem far-fetched. After all, we live in an age of skepticism, where anything labeled spiritual is often met with raised eyebrows or outright dismissal. But what if I told you that some of the most profound insights into the nature of reality come not from mystics or gurus, but from physicists working in laboratories around the globe? What if the tools of science could help demystify concepts like oneness, manifestation, multidimensionality, and energy healing, making them accessible to intellectual seekers hungry for evidence-based answers? This book is an invitation to explore those questions, not as abstract theories, but as lived experiences. Together, we'll journey through the foundations of quantum physics, uncovering how principles like wave-particle duality and entanglement mirror spiritual teachings of interconnectedness and co-creation. We'll delve into the role of consciousness in shaping reality, examining how thoughts, emotions, and intentions ripple outward to influence outcomes both subtle and profound. Along the way, we'll encounter stories of transformation, practical exercises for personal growth, and cutting-edge research that validates ancient practices. By the end of this exploration, you will emerge with greater clarity, not just about the workings of the universe, but about your own potential to shape it. You'll discover tools for aligning with universal frequencies, techniques for cultivating compassion and gratitude, and strategies for integrating these insights into your daily life. Most importantly, you'll awaken to the realization that you are not merely a passive observer of reality. You are an active participant, a co-creator wielding untapped power to manifest change. So take a deep breath. Let go of preconceived notions. Open yourself to possibility. Because what lies ahead is not just a story, it's a revolution. One that begins not out there, in the stars above, but right here within the depths of your own quantum soul. Elena paused, rereading the passage with a mix of satisfaction and trepidation. Was she ready to share this part of herself with the world? To step onto the uncharted ground where logic mingled freely with wonder? Only time will tell. For now, though, she allowed herself a small smile. The journey was just beginning, and already she could feel the first stirrings of transformation. As she closed her laptop and turned off the light, the hum of the city outside seemed less chaotic and more harmonious. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, a child laughed, and a star twinkled faintly in the night sky. Everything truly was connected. And deep inside, Elena knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. 2. Quantum physics and the nature of reality. The faint hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Dr. Elena Vasquez adjusted her glasses, scanning the rows of eager faces in the lecture hall. Her students leaned forward, notebooks open, pens poised like soldiers awaiting orders. Today's topic was one that always ignited curiosity and occasionally skepticism among even the most seasoned academics: quantum mechanics and the nature of reality. Elena cleared her throat, allowing a moment of silence to settle over the room before beginning. "Let me start with a question," she said, her voice steady but warm. "What do you think is real?" A ripple of murmurs spread through the audience. Some chuckled nervously. Others exchanged glances, unsure if this was rhetorical or an invitation for participation. Finally, a young woman near the front raised her hand hesitantly. "Well, everything we can see, touch, hear, that's real, right?" Elena smiled gently. "That seems reasonable. But what about things we can't perceive directly? Gravity, for instance. You've never seen it, yet its effects are undeniable." She paused, letting the idea sink in. Now imagine a world where nothing is fixed, not objects, not events, not even time itself, until someone observes them. She turned to the projector screen behind her, where an image of two slits cut into a metal plate appeared alongside a graph showing wave interference patterns. "This," she continued, gesturing toward the diagram, "is the double-slit experiment, one of the cornerstones of quantum physics. And it challenges everything we thought we knew about reality. The double-slit experiment, a window into uncertainty." Elena dimmed the lights slightly, drawing attention to the projection. "Imagine firing particles, let's say electrons, at a barrier with two slits. On the other side of the barrier, there's a detector screen to record where the electrons land. What would you expect to happen?" A student in the back called out confidently. "They'd go through one slit or the other, creating two lines on the screen." "Logical assumption," Elena replied, nodding approvingly. "But here's the twist. When no one observes which slit the electrons pass through, they behave like waves instead of particles. They interfere with themselves, producing an interference pattern, a series of bright and dark bands, as though each electron went through both slits simultaneously." Murmurs erupted across the room. One student muttered under his breath, "How is that possible?" Elena let the tension build for a moment before answering. "Because at the quantum level, particles exist in a state of probability, a superposition, until measured. It's only when we observe them that their wave function collapses into a definite outcome." She clicked to the next slide, revealing a quote by physicist Niels Bohr. "Asterisk, anyone who is not shocked by quantum theory has not understood it." The class erupted into laughter, easing some of the cognitive dissonance settling over them. But why does this matter? Elena asked, leaning against the podium. Why should any of us care whether electrons act like particles or waves? Her gaze swept the room, landing on Daniel, the same skeptical graduate student from earlier lectures. He sat rigidly, arms crossed, clearly wrestling with the implications. Sensing his struggle, Elena addressed him directly. Daniel, tell me something. When you make a decision, say choosing between two job offers, do you ever feel like both options exist simultaneously until you commit? He blinked, caught off guard. I guess so. I mean, yeah, sometimes it feels like all possibilities are floating around until I pick one. Exactly, Elena said, her tone softening. Quantum mechanics suggests that this isn't just a metaphor, it's how reality operates. Until observed, every choice exists in superposition. Your observation or intention collapses those probabilities into a single path. Superposition and free will, the human connection. To illustrate further, Elena shared a personal anecdote. Years ago, I faced a similar dilemma. I had been offered positions at two prestigious universities, one focused on theoretical research, the other on applied science. For weeks, I agonized over the decision, feeling torn between two equally compelling futures. Then one morning, while meditating, I visualized myself thriving in both scenarios. Suddenly, clarity emerged. I chose the university aligned with my passion for bridging science and spirituality. She paused, letting the story resonate. Here's the fascinating part. After making that decision, opportunities began unfolding in ways I couldn't have predicted. Funding appeared unexpectedly. Collaborations materialized effortlessly. It was as though my choice had set off a chain reaction, reshaping my reality. Turning back to the class, she added, "This isn't magic, it's physics. By focusing my energy and attention on a specific outcome, I effectively collapsed the wave function of my life's possibilities. That's the power of conscious observation. Uncertainty principle, embracing life's ambiguities ****. As the lecture drew to a close, Elena introduced another cornerstone of quantum theory, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. In simple terms, this principle states that you cannot simultaneously know both the position and momentum of a particle with absolute precision. The more accurately you measure one property, the less certain you become about the other. She clicked to a new slide, displaying a photograph of Werner Heisenberg beside a Zen koan. What is the sound of one hand clapping? This concept extends beyond physics, she explained. It applies to life itself. Think about it. How often do we try to control every detail of our circumstances, only to find that certainty eludes us? The harder we grasp, the slipperier reality becomes. She recounted a recent experience working with a client named Sarah, a corporate executive struggling with burnout. Despite meticulous planning, Sarah found herself paralyzed by indecision, unable to move forward in her career. Together, they explored the parallels between quantum uncertainty and human experience. We reframed her mindset, Elena recalled. Instead of striving for perfect clarity, she embraced ambiguity as part of the process. Paradoxically, this shift allowed her to take decisive action, trusting that the universe would meet her halfway. Conclusion: redefining reality. By the end of the lecture, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. Students scribbled furiously in their notebooks, capturing insights that challenged their worldview. As Elena dismissed the class, Daniel approached her desk, his earlier skepticism replaced by cautious intrigue. So, he began, shifting his weight from foot to foot. If reality is shaped by observation, does that mean we're constantly creating it? whether we realize it or not. Elena smiled knowingly. Yes, and once you understand that, you hold the key to transforming your life. With those words lingering in the air, she gathered her notes, already envisioning the next chapter of her journey. And theirs. 3. Entangled Souls, Understanding Oneness Through Quantum Mechanics. The late afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows of Elena's home office, casting golden streaks across her cluttered desk. Papers covered in equations and diagrams were scattered alongside a steaming mug of chamomile tea. She leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples, as she reflected on the lecture from earlier that day. The students' reactions to the double-slit experiment had been invigorating, especially Daniel's probing questions, but there was one concept she hadn't fully unpacked yet: quantum entanglement. Elena sighed softly, feeling both excitement and trepidation about diving deeper into this topic. It wasn't just a scientific phenomenon, bridge between physics and spirituality, a tangible metaphor for interconnectedness. And if her audience, the intellectual seekers who craved evidence-based insights, could grasp its implications, they might begin to see themselves not as isolated beings, but as threads woven into the vast tapestry of existence. She opened her laptop, notes from her recent collaboration with Dr. Samuel Chun before his passing. His voice echoed in her memory. Asterisk, entanglement isn't just about particles, Elena. It's about relationships between people, ideas, even moments in time. Asterisk, those words had stayed with her, guiding her exploration ever since. A thought experiment. Spooky action at a distance. Elena decided to start with Einstein's famous critique of quantum entanglement, spooky action at a distance. She began typing, weaving together science and storytelling to make the abstract more relatable. Imagine two particles created simultaneously, say, photons emitted from the same atom. These particles become entangled, meaning their properties are intrinsically linked regardless of how far apart they travel. If you measure one particle's spin and find it spinning clockwise, the other will instantly spin counterclockwise, even if it's light years away. No signal travels between them. No time elapses. They simply respond to each other instantaneously. This baffled Einstein, who famously dismissed it as spooky. But experiments conducted decades later confirmed that entanglement is real. Particles separated by unimaginable distances remain connected in ways classical physics can't explain. For Elena, this wasn't just fascinating science. It was a profound reflection of human connection. She thought of her own life. The bond she shared with her late mentor, Samuel, still felt alive despite his physical absence. Their conversations lingered in her mind like echoes, influencing her choices and shaping her path forward. Wasn't that a form of entanglement? From particles to people, exploring interconnectedness. To bring the concept closer to home, Elena recalled a conversation she'd had with Maya, the Reiki practitioner she'd collaborated with during her research on energy healing. Over cups of green tea in Maya's serene studio, they discussed how entanglement could illuminate the invisible ties binding humans together. Maya had described working with clients who experienced sudden shifts in emotional states after sessions, even those miles away. It's as though our energies remain connected, she'd said. When I send healing intentions, they resonate with the recipient, creating ripples that extend beyond space and time. At first, Elena had been skeptical, but then she remembered an incident involving her estranged brother, Lucas. After years of strained silence following their father's death, she'd spent an evening meditating, visualizing reconciliation. Within days, Lucas called out of the blue, apologizing and asking to reconnect. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps something deeper was at play. Intrigued, Elena dove into studies exploring non-local consciousness, the idea that thoughts and emotions could influence others without direct interaction. While controversial, some experiments suggested intriguing possibilities. For instance, heart-focused meditation had been shown to synchronize brain waves among participants, even when physically separated. Could this be another manifestation of entanglement? The science behind collective consciousness. Elena paused her writing, recalling a documentary she'd watched recently about mass meditations conducted in cities plagued by violence. Researchers claimed that when large groups practiced focused intention, crime rates dropped significantly. Critics dismissed these findings as correlation rather than causation, but Elena saw parallels to quantum systems. Just as entangled particles responded to changes in one another, collective human consciousness might operate similarly, a network of minds influencing outcomes on a societal scale. She imagined explaining this to her students. Think of humanity as a single organism, she'd say. Each individual represents a cell, contributing to the health or dysfunction of the whole. When we cultivate compassion, empathy, and understanding, we strengthen the bonds connecting us. We create coherence in the system. But how could someone practically apply this insight? Elena knew her readers wouldn't settle for theory alone. They wanted actionable steps. Practical applications. Cultivating compassion. Elena crafted a section offering tools for readers to explore interconnectedness in their own lives. Drawing from neuroscience, psychology, and spiritual practices, she outlined exercises designed to foster awareness of entanglement. 1. Mirror meditation. Sit face-to-face with someone close to you or use your reflection. Focus on their eyes, imagining the shared humanity behind them. Notice any shifts in your perception of connection. 2. Gratitude mapping. Write down 3 people whose presence enriches your life. Reflect on how your actions ripple outward, affecting them, and vice versa. Consider sending them heartfelt messages expressing appreciation. 3. Global intention setting. Dedicate 5 minutes daily to visualizing peace, love, or healing spreading across the planet. Picture yourself as part of a global web of consciousness, amplifying positive vibrations. 4. Energy exchange exercise. Place your hands over your heart and envision sending warmth and kindness to someone you've had conflict with. Imagine dissolving barriers between you, fostering mutual understanding. These practices weren't meant to replace rigorous scientific inquiry, but to complement it, to help readers experience entanglement firsthand. By nurturing connections within themselves and with others, they could tap into the universal field of oneness. Daniel's revelation. Later that week, Elena met Daniel for coffee to discuss his progress. He'd taken her advice seriously, experimenting with visualization techniques during his morning routine. As they sat sipping lattes, he confessed something surprising. "I tried focusing on my mom last night," he said, stirring sugar into his cup. "We haven't talked much since Dad passed, and I've been carrying guilt about it. So I imagined wrapping her in light, telling her how much I love her, and weirdly enough, she texted me this morning saying she missed me." Elena smiled knowingly. That's entanglement in action. Your intention created a resonance that bridged the gap between you. Daniel frowned slightly, still grappling with the implications. But what if I'm just seeing patterns where none exist? What if it's all coincidence? It's okay to question, Elena reassured him. Science thrives on skepticism, but don't let doubt blind you to possibility. Sometimes the most profound truths lie beyond logic. Conclusion: Threads in the Cosmic Web. As Elena wrapped up her chapter, she returned to the central theme, oneness. Whether viewed through the lens of quantum mechanics, or ancient wisdom traditions, interconnectedness was undeniable. Every thought, word, and action sent ripples through the fabric of reality, shaping not only our individual lives, but the collective experience of humanity. The next time you feel alone, she wrote, remember this: you're never truly separate. You're part of a cosmic dance, entwined with everything around you. Embrace this truth and watch as your perspective transforms. With those final words, Elena saved her document, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. This chapter wasn't just an explanation of quantum entanglement. It was an invitation to awaken to the beauty of connection. And as she closed her laptop, she couldn't wait to share it with the world. Part 2: Consciousness and Reality Creation. If Part 1 laid the groundwork for understanding the fabric of reality, then Part 2 plunges us headfirst into the heart of creation, your role as its co-creator. Picture yourself holding a brush dipped in colors unseen by the naked eye, ready to paint upon the canvas of possibility. In this section, we explore the profound implications of consciousness as a force capable of shaping the world. What does it mean to observe, and thereby influence, the unfolding of events around you? How do thoughts ripple outward, influencing outcomes far beyond their initial scope? Drawing from cutting-edge neuroscience and timeless metaphysical teachings, we'll unravel the mysteries of manifestation, intention setting, and multidimensional awareness. These chapters are designed not only to inform but also to empower, offering practical tools to help you harness the immense creative potential within. By the end of this part, you won't just understand how reality is formed. You'll know how to shape it consciously. 4. The observer effect. How your thoughts shape reality. The rain had stopped by the time Elena stepped into her garden, carrying a steaming mug of coffee. Droplets clung to the leaves of her lavender bushes, glistening like tiny jewels under the pale morning light. She took a deep breath, savoring the earthy scent of wet soil mingled with the faint aroma of blooming jasmine. This was her sanctuary, a place where she could think clearly, away from the noise of lectures and labs. Today, however, her thoughts were anything but tranquil. The lecture on quantum entanglement still lingered in her mind, but now another concept demanded her attention: the observer effect. It wasn't just a principle confined to subatomic particles. It was a lens through which she'd begun to see every aspect of life. And if her readers could grasp its implications, they might unlock the power to shape their own realities. She sat down on a weathered wooden bench beneath an ancient oak tree, opening her notebook to a fresh page. As she wrote, she imagined herself speaking directly to Daniel, the skeptical graduate student who had become something of a muse for her work. If she could help him understand this idea, she knew it would resonate with others too. The power of observation, a subtle force. Elena started with a simple analogy. Imagine standing at the edge of a calm lake. She began sketching the scene in her notebook. The surface is smooth, reflecting the sky perfectly. But as soon as you toss a pebble into the water, ripples spread outward, distorting the reflection. In quantum mechanics, observation acts much like that pebble. When scientists measure particles, whether determining their position or momentum, they inevitably disturb the system. This isn't merely a limitation of instruments. It's a fundamental property of reality itself. Particles exist in a state of probability until observed, at which point they choose a specific outcome. But what happens when we apply this principle beyond the lab? What if our observations don't just collapse wave functions? They shape entire lives. Elena recalled a pivotal moment in her own journey. Years ago, during a particularly challenging phase in her career, she'd attended a workshop led by a mindfulness coach named Priya. One exercise stood out vividly. Participants were asked to observe their surroundings without judgment, simply noting details as they arose. At first, Elena found it frustratingly slow, but then something shifted. I noticed things I'd overlooked before, she later told Daniel during one of their discussions. A crack in the wall that looked like a lightning bolt. The way sunlight filtered through the blinds, creating patterns on the floor. By observing these small details, I felt more present, and somehow my problems seemed less overwhelming. Priya explained afterward that focused observation changes not only what we perceive, but also how we interact with it. When you pay attention to something, she said, you give it energy, you bring it into sharper focus, making it more real. This insight stayed with Elena long after the workshop ended. Over time, she realized that observation wasn't passive, it was participatory. Every glance, every thought carried weight, subtly influencing the world around her. Thoughts as observers, the role of intention. To illustrate this further, Elena shared a story about her friend Rachel, a graphic designer struggling to break into freelance work. For months, Rachel obsessed over rejection emails and client cancellations, convinced she'd never succeed. Then one day, inspired by a podcast on manifestation, she decided to try a new approach. Instead of dwelling on failures, Rachel began visualizing success each morning. She imagined landing dream projects, receiving glowing feedback, and building financial stability. Crucially, she paired these mental images with feelings of gratitude, as though the outcomes had already occurred. Within weeks, opportunities started flowing in unexpectedly. A former colleague recommended her for a high-profile gig. Another client offered repeat business after praising her designs. While skeptics might attribute this to coincidence, Elena saw a deeper pattern. Rachel's shift in focus had altered her energetic frequency, aligning her with possibilities she hadn't previously considered. Thoughts are observers too, Elena emphasized. They direct your attention, shaping what you notice, and therefore what becomes real in your experience. Neuroscience meets quantum physics, rewiring the brain. To ground this idea in science, Elena delved into research on neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on repeated experiences. Studies showed that consistent focus on positive thoughts strengthened neural pathways associated with optimism and resilience. Conversely, habitual negativity reinforced circuits linked to stress and anxiety. She highlighted a study conducted at Harvard University, where participants practiced gratitude journaling daily for 8 weeks. MRI scans revealed increased activity in regions responsible for emotional regulation and empathy. These changes persisted even after the experiment ended, suggesting lasting benefits. This isn't just wishful thinking, Elena wrote. It's biology. Every thought you entertain sends signals throughout your nervous system, influencing hormones, neurotransmitters, and ultimately your behavior. For readers eager to harness this knowledge, she included practical exercises. 1. Mindful observation. Spend 5 minutes daily observing your environment without judgment. Note colors, textures, sounds, anything that captures your attention. Over time, notice how this practice enhances your awareness of subtle opportunities. 2. Intention setting. Before starting your day, write down 3 intentions, e.g., I will approach challenges with curiosity. Pair each intention with a corresponding emotion, such as confidence or joy. 3. Visualization practice. Close your eyes and picture yourself achieving a goal. Engage all senses. What do you see, hear, feel? Hold the image in your mind while cultivating feelings of gratitude, as though it's already happened. 4. Affirmation anchoring. Choose a phrase that resonates with you, e.g., I am capable of creating meaningful change, and repeat it silently whenever doubt arises. Pair it with a physical gesture, like pressing your thumb against your palm, to reinforce the association. These techniques weren't magic bullets. They required patience and consistency, but they offered a scientifically backed pathway to transformation. Daniel's experiment, testing the observer effect. Later that week, Elena invited Daniel to join her in a guided exercise designed to test the observer effect firsthand. They met in her living room, surrounded by soft candlelight and the gentle hum of instrumental music. After leading him through a brief meditation to center his mind, she handed him a blank sheet of paper. For the next 10 minutes, she instructed, write down everything you want to create in your life. Don't censor yourself, just let the words flow. At first, Daniel hesitated, pen hovering uncertainly above the page. But as he started writing, his initial hesitation gave way to clarity. He listed goals ranging from professional aspirations, secure funding for my research project, to personal dreams, reconnect with old friends. Each entry was accompanied by a vivid description of how achieving it would feel. When the timer chimed, Elena encouraged him to review his list and select one item to focus on intensely. Close your eyes, she said, and imagine stepping into that reality. Feel the emotions tied to it: excitement, relief, pride. Let those feelings anchor the vision in your consciousness. Afterward, Daniel admitted feeling surprisingly energized. It's strange, he confessed. I've written lists like this before, but something about doing it this way feels different. Like I'm actually participating in the process, instead of just hoping for results. Elena smiled, knowingly. That's because you are. You're collapsing probabilities into possibilities, and possibilities into reality. Conclusion: becoming the architect of your world. As Elena concluded her chapter, she reflected on the profound responsibility and privilege of being an observer. Every moment presents infinite potential. She wrote, your role is to choose where to direct your attention. Will you dwell on limitations, reinforcing barriers? Or will you focus on opportunities, expanding horizons? She envisioned her readers embracing this perspective, not as passive recipients of fate, but as active creators of their destinies. By mastering the art of observation, they could step fully into their roles as architects of reality. The universe responds to your gaze, she finished. Look deeply, and you'll find it mirrors back exactly what you seek. With those final words, Elena closed her notebook, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. This chapter wasn't just an exploration of the observer effect. It was a call to action. And as she prepared to share it with the world, she knew it would inspire others to embark on their own journeys of awakening. 5. Manifestation beyond affirmations, aligning with universal frequencies. The early morning mist clung to the edges of Elena's garden, softening the sharp outlines of her lavender bushes and rosemary plants. She stood barefoot on the damp grass, arms outstretched as if embracing the dawn itself. This was her favorite time of day, a liminal space between night and day, silence and sound, potential and actuality. It was here, amidst the quiet hum of nature waking up, that she often felt most connected to the universal rhythms she wrote about in her book. Today, however, her mind wasn't resting. The concept of manifestation had been swirling in her thoughts for weeks now, but it wasn't the superficial version peddled by self-help gurus promising quick fixes through affirmations or vision boards. No, what intrigued Elena was something deeper. The idea that manifestation wasn't just about declaring desires. It was about aligning oneself with the energetic frequencies of those desires. To truly create reality, one had to become a tuning fork resonating with the universe. She sighed softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face as she turned back toward the house. Inside, her laptop awaited, its screen glowing faintly against the dim light of the study. As she settled into her chair, She opened a fresh document, imagining herself speaking directly to Daniel, the skeptical yet increasingly curious graduate student who had become an integral part of her journey. If she could help him understand this nuanced approach to manifestation, she knew others would follow suit. Beyond words, why affirmations aren't enough. Elena began typing, her fingers moving swiftly across the keyboard. Affirmations have their place, she wrote, but they're only the tip of the iceberg. Saying I am abundant or I attract success won't magically manifest wealth or opportunity unless your internal state matches those declarations. To illustrate this point, she recalled a client named Sarah, a marketing executive who had come to her seeking guidance after years of failed attempts at manifesting career advancement. Despite diligently repeating positive affirmations every morning, Sarah remained stuck in a cycle of frustration and stagnation. What's missing? Elena had asked during their first session. I don't know, Sarah replied, exasperated. I say all the right things, visualize my goals, but nothing changes. Elena smiled gently. Let's dig deeper. What emotions are you feeling when you repeat those affirmations? Are you genuinely experiencing abundance, or are you secretly doubting whether it's possible? Sarah hesitated before admitting, honestly, I feel like I'm faking it, like I'm lying to myself. That's the key, Elena explained. Manifestation isn't about convincing yourself of something you don't believe. It's about embodying the truth of what you desire. Your emotional frequency must align with the outcome you seek. Energy as information, tuning into universal frequencies. To clarify this concept, Elena drew upon research from quantum physics and biofield science. Just as particles vibrate at specific frequencies, so too do human beings emit unique energetic signatures. These vibrations influence not only our physical health, but also our interactions with the world around us. She referenced studies conducted by Dr. Roland McCready at the HeartMath Institute, which demonstrated how heart coherence, achieved through practices like gratitude and compassion, could enhance communication between individuals and even synchronize brainwaves over distance. When your energy field is coherent, she wrote, you naturally attract experiences that resonate with your frequency. But how does one achieve such coherence? Elena outlined several principles. 1. Emotional alignment. Identify the core emotion tied to your desire, e.g., joy, peace, fulfillment, and cultivate it daily. Use tools like meditation, journaling, or movement to access these states. 2. Resonance over resistance. Release beliefs or habits that block alignment with your goals. For example, if you want financial abundance, but harbor guilt about money, those conflicting energies will cancel each other out. 3. Vibrational matching. Surround yourself with people, environments, and activities that reflect the reality you wish to create. If you aspire to live creatively, immerse yourself in art, music, and innovation. Elena included a personal anecdote to drive the point home. During a particularly challenging period in her life, she'd struggled to manifest meaningful connections despite her efforts. Then, during a retreat focused on mindfulness and self-compassion, she realized she'd been operating from a place of scarcity, believing there wasn't enough love or support to go around. Once she shifted her perspective to one of abundance, friendships deepened, and new opportunities emerged effortlessly. Case study, From Doubt to Dream Realized. To provide a concrete example, Elena revisited Sarah's story. After identifying her underlying resistance, Sarah embarked on a 3-month experiment designed to recalibrate her vibrational frequency. Each morning, instead of rushing through affirmations, she spent 20 minutes practicing gratitude and visualization. She imagined herself thriving in her dream role, not just picturing it, but fully immersing herself in the associated emotions. Simultaneously, she addressed limiting beliefs through cognitive reframing exercises. When thoughts like, "I'm not good enough," arose, she countered them with evidence of past successes and supportive mantras like, "I am worthy of growth and prosperity." Within months, Sarah received an unexpected promotion, followed by an offer to lead a high-profile campaign. While skeptics might dismiss this as coincidence, Elena saw it as proof of principle. When Sarah aligned her energy with her aspirations, the universe responded accordingly. Daniel's breakthrough, feeling the frequency. Later that week, Elena invited Daniel to join her for a hands-on exercise exploring vibrational alignment. They met in her studio, a cozy room filled with cushions, crystals, and the faint scent of sandalwood incense. After guiding him through a grounding meditation, she handed him a tuning fork. "Strike this," she instructed, "and listen closely to the tone. Notice how it resonates throughout the room." As Daniel struck the fork, a clear, ringing note filled the air. He closed his eyes, focusing on the sound until it faded into silence. "Now, imagine your body as a tuning fork," Elena continued. "Every thought, emotion, and action emits a frequency. When you focus on what you want to create, you amplify its vibration within you. Eventually, you'll begin attracting similar frequencies from the external world." To demonstrate, she led him through a visualization exercise. Close your eyes again. Picture yourself living your ideal life, not just seeing it, but feeling it. What does success taste like? Smell like? Sound like? Let those sensations anchor the experience in your consciousness. Afterward, Daniel admitted feeling a subtle shift. "It's hard to explain," he said, "but I feel lighter somehow, like I'm closer to what I want, even though nothing's changed externally yet." Elena nodded approvingly. "That's because you've started shifting your internal state. External circumstances will follow." Conclusion: becoming a vibrational match. As Elena wrapped up her chapter, she reflected on the transformative power of vibrational alignment. "Manifestation isn't magic, it's physics," she wrote. "Just as two entangled particles respond instantly to changes in one another, so do you interact with the universe. Raising your frequency to match your desires, you collapse probabilities into tangible outcomes." She envisioned her readers stepping into this process, not as passive dreamers, but as active participants in co-creating their realities. By mastering the art of alignment, they could transcend limitations and step boldly into their highest potential. "The universe speaks in frequencies," she concluded. "Tune yours wisely and watch as harmony unfolds." With those final words, Elena saved her document, feeling a profound sense of completion. 6. Parallel universes and past lives, exploring multidimensional consciousness. The rain tapped softly against the window pane, a rhythmic counterpoint to the crackling fire in Dr. Elena Ruiz's study. She sat hunched over her desk, surrounded by stacks of books, notebooks filled with scribbled equations, and a laptop glowing faintly in the dim light. On the screen was an article about Hugh Everett III's Many Worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which suggested every decision we make spawns multiple realities, each branching off into its own universe. Elena leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples as if trying to massage away the weight of the implications. The idea felt both exhilarating and unnerving, like staring into an abyss that stretched infinitely in all directions. What did it mean for her life? For everyone's lives? If every choice created alternate versions of reality, then how many Elenas were out there right now, living entirely different existences? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching from the hallway. A moment later, her best friend and colleague, Dr. Samir Patel, appeared at the doorway, holding 2 steaming mugs of tea. He offered one to her with a wry smile. "You look like you're solving the mysteries of the universe," he said, settling into the armchair across from her desk. "Or maybe just stressing over them." Elena chuckled dryly, but accepted the mug gratefully. "Something like that. I've been reading about the many worlds interpretation again. It's overwhelming." Samir nodded thoughtfully, cradling his own tea. "It's not hard to see why. Imagine knowing that every time you make a decision, even something as small as choosing between coffee or tea, you're creating another version of yourself somewhere else. That kind of knowledge changes everything." "Exactly," Elena replied, her voice tinged with awe. "But here's the thing. What if those other versions of us aren't just random possibilities? What if they're part of a bigger picture, like chapters in a book written by our soul?" Samir raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You're talking about reincarnation now?" "In a way, yes," she admitted. "Think about it. If the multiverse exists, then past lives might not be confined to linear timelines. They could be happening simultaneously in parallel dimensions. Each lifetime is a thread woven into the tapestry of our soul's evolution. Many worlds interpretation. Every decision creates alternate realities." To understand this concept, Elena knew she had to start with science. She turned her laptop towards Samir, so he could see the diagram on the screen, a branching tree representing the many worlds interpretation. According to physicist Hugh Everett III, when faced with choices, the universe doesn't simply follow one path. Instead, it splits into countless branches, each containing a different outcome. For example, she explained, pointing to the diagram, imagine standing at a crossroads. You choose to go left, but somewhere out there, another version of you chose right. Both decisions happen simultaneously, creating separate realities. Samir frowned, processing the idea. So, theoretically, there's a version of me who became a rock star instead of a neuroscientist. Elena grinned. Probably more than one. And some of those versions are probably terrible at guitar. They shared a laugh, but the humor masked a deeper curiosity. If the many worlds interpretation held true, then the scope of human experience expanded exponentially. Every regret, every missed opportunity, every dream deferred, it wasn't lost. Somewhere, somehow, it was being lived. But Elena wasn't content to stop there. She wanted to explore how this scientific framework connected to spiritual teachings about reincarnation and karmic cycles. Evidence for past lives, regression therapy, and near-death experiences. She pulled up another tab on her laptop, featuring research on past life regression therapy. Developed by pioneers like Dr. Brian Weiss, the practice involved guiding individuals into hypnotic states where they accessed memories of previous lifetimes. Skeptics dismissed it as fantasy or confabulation, but Elena found the testimonies compelling. "There's this case I read about recently," she told Samir. "A woman under hypnosis described vivid details of a life in 19th century France, details she couldn't have known unless she'd actually lived it. Things like street names, historical events, even specific customs that historians later confirmed." Samir tilted his head, considering. And near-death experiences? People often report seeing their entire lives flash before their eyes, or even meeting beings of light who guide them. "Right," Elena said, nodding eagerly. "These accounts suggest that consciousness isn't confined to the physical body. It transcends time and space, existing across dimensions. In fact, some researchers believe near-death experiences provide glimpses of the multiverse, the place where all versions of ourselves coexist." Connecting multiverse theory to soul evolution and karmic cycles. As fascinating as these ideas were, Elena wanted to take them further. Could the multiverse explain the concept of karma, the notion that our actions in one lifetime influence future ones? She imagined the soul as a traveler moving through countless realities, learning lessons, and evolving. "Picture your soul as a student," she said, gesturing animatedly. "Each lifetime is a classroom, and the multiverse is the school. When you graduate from one reality, you move on to the next, carrying forward the wisdom you've gained. Karma becomes less about punishment and more about patterns, repeating lessons until you master them." Samir nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "That makes sense. But how do we access this higher wisdom? How do we tap into the knowledge stored in our parallel selves?" Elena smiled knowingly. "That's where visualization comes in. Exercise, visualizing alternate timelines, and accessing higher wisdom." She retrieved a journal from her desk and flipped it open to a blank page. "I've been experimenting with an exercise to connect with my alternate selves. Want to try it?" Intrigued, Samir set aside his tea and leaned forward. Elena guided him through the process. 1. Find stillness, sit comfortably, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. Allow your mind to quiet and your body to relax. 2. Visualize the multiverse. Imagine yourself standing at the center of a vast web of light, each strand representing a different timeline. Feel the energy pulsing through these strands, connecting you to infinite versions of yourself. 3. Choose a timeline. Select one strand that resonates with you, perhaps a version of yourself who embodies qualities you admire, like courage, creativity, or peace. 4. Communicate. Ask this alternate self for guidance. What can they teach you? What insights do they offer about your current challenges? 5. Integrate the wisdom. Bring their advice back into your present reality. How can you apply it to your life today? As Samir followed her instructions, Elena watched his face soften, his usual skepticism giving way to wonder. When he opened his eyes a few minutes later, he looked visibly moved. "I saw myself as a painter," he murmured, almost to himself. "In that reality, I gave up neuroscience to pursue art full-time. And he told me not to be afraid of taking risks." Elena smiled gently. "See, your soul already knows what you need to hear. Sometimes, all it takes is listening." By the end of their conversation, the room felt lighter, charged with possibility. Elena glanced at the clock, surprised to find hours had passed. The storm outside had eased, leaving behind a serene calm. "This is just the beginning," she said, closing her laptop. "Understanding the multiverse, and our place within it, opens doors we never knew existed. Doors to healing, growth, and transformation." Samir stood, stretching. "Well, if nothing else, tonight has convinced me of one thing. Reality is far stranger and far more beautiful than we give it credit for." As he left the room, Elena remained seated, gazing once more at the photo of her grandmother. Somewhere, in another timeline, Abuela was still alive, tending to her garden and sharing secrets of the universe. And perhaps in some small way, Elena could feel her presence right here, guiding her forward. With renewed determination, she picked up her pen and began writing. Part 3. Healing and Transformation. Healing is more than mending wounds. It is a sacred act of realignment, a return to wholeness. Welcome to Part 3, where science meets soul in the alchemy of transformation. Envision stepping into a sanctuary bathed in golden light, where every cell in your body hums with vitality, and every thought vibrates with purpose. Here, we delve into the intricate dance between energy and matter, exploring how subtle forces govern our physical and emotional well-being. From biofields to biophotons, sacred geometry to sound frequencies, This section bridges the gap between ancient wisdom and contemporary research. You'll encounter stories of individuals who have transcended illness through sheer belief, discover techniques for balancing your own energetic blueprint, and learn why gratitude might be the ultimate healer. Each chapter serves as both guidebook and mirror, reflecting back to you the boundless capacity for renewal inherent in all living things. Prepare to emerge renewed, not just healed but transformed. 7. Energy healing from a scientific perspective. The faint scent of lavender wafted through the air as Elena sat cross-legged on the floor of her dimly lit meditation room. A single Himalayan salt lamp cast a warm, amber glow across the space, illuminating shelves lined with crystals, books, and journals. In front of her lay an array of biofeedback devices, heart rate monitors, EEG headsets, and electromagnetic field detectors that she'd gathered for her latest experiment. Tonight wasn't just about writing another chapter. It was about bridging two worlds that often seemed irreconcilable, science and spirituality. Energy healing had long been dismissed by skeptics as pseudoscience, relegated to the fringes of serious inquiry. But Elena knew better. Her own experiences and those of countless others had convinced her there was something profound at play. What if energy healing could be validated not through dogma, but through rigorous investigation? What if ancient practices like Reiki, acupuncture, and sound therapy could be explained using the language of quantum mechanics and biophysics? She took a deep breath, steadying herself before diving into the task ahead. The biofield, mapping the invisible. Elena began by introducing the concept of the biofield, a term coined by researchers to describe the complex network of electromagnetic fields generated by living organisms. These fields extend beyond the physical body, interacting with internal systems like the nervous and immune systems and external influences such as environmental energies. Think of your biofield as an energetic blueprint. She wrote, it carries information about your physical, emotional, and mental states. When this field is disrupted by stress, illness, or trauma, the effects ripple outward, manifesting as symptoms in the body. To illustrate, she referenced studies conducted at institutions like the National Institutes of Health, NIH, which explored how disruptions in the biofield correlated with chronic conditions such as fibromyalgia, migraines, and autoimmune disorders. One particularly compelling study involved measuring the electrical conductivity of acupoints along meridians, the pathways described in traditional Chinese medicine. Researchers found that these points exhibited significantly higher conductivity than surrounding skin, suggesting they served as conduits for energy flow. But what fascinated Elena most was the role of intention in modulating the biofield. Could focused thought alone influence the subtle energies coursing through our bodies? To answer this question, she turned to cutting-edge research on non-local consciousness. Non-local consciousness, the power of intention. Elena recounted a groundbreaking experiment led by Dr. William Tiller, a former Stanford University professor renowned for his work on intentionality. In one study, participants were asked to direct healing intentions toward water samples miles away. Remarkably, the treated water showed measurable changes in pH levels compared to untreated controls, a result replicated across multiple trials. This isn't magic, Elena emphasized. It's physics. Just as entangled particles respond instantaneously regardless of distance, so can human consciousness interact with matter in ways we're only beginning to understand. She shared her own experience collaborating with Maya, the Reiki practitioner whose sessions had yielded intriguing results during their joint research project. Using biofeedback devices, they measured participants' physiological responses before, during, and after treatments. Consistently, they observed reductions in cortisol levels, increased heart rate variability, a marker of stress resilience, and enhanced brainwave coherence. One participant, a woman named Claire struggling with insomnia, reported sleeping soundly for the first time in months after a single session. "I didn't feel anything happening during the treatment," Claire admitted afterward. "But when I woke up the next morning, I felt lighter, like some invisible weight had lifted." Elena interpreted these findings through the lens of quantum entanglement. When Maya channels healing energy, she's essentially amplifying the recipient's natural ability to self-regulate. Their biofields become temporarily synchronized, creating a feedback loop that restores balance. Tools for self-healing, bridging ancient wisdom and modern science. To empower readers to explore energy healing for themselves, Elena outlined practical techniques grounded in both tradition and research. 1. Breath work. Slow, intentional breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting relaxation and restoring biofield equilibrium. Pairing breath work with visualization, imagining light filling areas of tension, can amplify its effects. 2. Sound therapy. Certain frequencies resonate with specific chakras or energy centers in the body. Listening to binaural beats, singing bowls, or tuning forks tuned to 528 Hz, often called the miracle tone, can harmonize chaotic energies. 3. Crystal grids. Placing crystals like amethyst, rose quartz, or clear quartz around the body creates a lattice of coherent vibrations. While anecdotal, many users report feeling calmer and more centered after lying within a crystal grid. 4. Meditation with intention. Before meditating, set a clear intention, for example, releasing fear or cultivating joy. Visualize golden light flowing through your body, dissolving blockages and restoring flow. For those interested in hands-on practice, Elena included step-by-step instructions for performing basic Reiki-like techniques. Place your palms gently over areas of discomfort. She advised, imagine sending warmth and healing energy into those spaces. Trust your intuition. You don't need formal training to tap into universal life force. Daniel's experiment, exploring his own biofield. Later that week, Elena invited Daniel to join her in a hands-on exploration of energy healing. They met in her studio, where she'd arranged cushions, candles, and a small collection of crystals. After guiding him through a brief grounding exercise, she handed him a pair of electrodes connected to a biofeedback device. "We're going to measure your heart rate variability," she explained. "This will give us insight into your stress levels and overall biofield coherence." As Daniel settled onto the cushion, Elena attached the sensors to his fingertips. The screen displayed real-time data, jagged peaks indicating high variability, a sign of elevated stress. "Now close your eyes and focus on your breath," she instructed. "Imagine drawing calm, healing energy into your body with each inhale and releasing tension with each exhale." After 10 minutes, the graph smoothed out noticeably. Daniel opened his eyes, surprised. "I actually feel calmer," he admitted. "Is that normal?" "It's expected," Elena replied. "Your thoughts and emotions directly influence your physiology. By shifting your focus, you've begun recalibrating your biofield." Encouraged, Daniel agreed to try a simple energy healing technique. Following Elena's guidance, he placed his hands over his chest, imagining warmth radiating outward. Though skeptical at first, he soon felt a subtle tingling sensation, a phenomenon Elena attributed to increased blood flow and localized energy activation. Conclusion: harnessing the power within. As Elena concluded her chapter, she reflected on the transformative potential of energy healing, not as a replacement for conventional medicine, but as a complementary tool for holistic well-being. "Your body is an orchestra," she wrote. "Every cell, every organ plays a part in maintaining harmony. When discord arises, energy healing offers a way to retune the symphony. She envisioned her readers embracing these practices, not as passive recipients of external interventions, but as active stewards of their own health. By learning to navigate their biofields, they could reclaim agency over their lives, fostering resilience and vitality. The universe operates on principles of vibration and resonance, she finished. Align yourself with these forces and watch as healing unfolds naturally. With those final words, Elena closed her laptop, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. This chapter wasn't just an explanation of energy healing. It was an invitation to awaken to the subtle yet powerful currents flowing through all of existence. And as she prepared to share it with the world, she knew it would inspire others to embark on their own journeys of discovery. 8. Bridging the gap between spirit and matter. The soft glow of dawn filtered through the stained glass windows of Elena's meditation studio, casting kaleidoscopic patterns on the wooden floor. She sat cross-legged in the center of the room, her hands resting lightly on her knees, palms facing upward. A faint breeze stirred the air, carrying with it the scent of sandalwood incense that spiraled lazily from a brass burner nearby. This was her sacred space, a sanctuary where she could explore the liminal territory between spirit and matter, intuition and intellect, energy and form. Today, however, her mind wasn't at rest. The concept of bridging these seemingly disparate realms had been gnawing at her thoughts for weeks now. How could she articulate something so intangible, yet profoundly real? How could she guide readers to see themselves not as separate entities, but as conduits through which universal forces flowed? She took a slow, deliberate breath, letting the stillness settle over her. Then, opening her eyes, she reached for her journal and began writing. Her words weren't just meant for the page. They were an offering to those who sought understanding, a bridge connecting ancient wisdom with modern science. And perhaps in crafting this chapter, she would find clarity herself. Sacred geometry, patterns that connect. Elena started with one of humanity's oldest symbols of unity, sacred geometry. From the spirals of seashells to the hexagonal symmetry of honeycombs, nature abounds with geometric patterns that reflect underlying principles of order and harmony. These forms aren't merely aesthetic. They encode information about the structure of reality itself. Consider the flower of life, she wrote, sketching its intricate web of overlapping circles. This pattern appears across cultures and epochs, etched into temple walls, manuscripts, and artifacts. It represents the interconnectedness of all creation, a blueprint for existence. To ground this idea in science, Elena referenced research on fractals, self-repeating patterns found in everything from snowflakes to galaxies. Mathematicians have shown that fractal geometry governs natural processes like river branching, tree growth, and even neural networks in the brain. Fractals remind us that complexity arises from simplicity, she explained. Just as a single seed contains the potential for an entire forest, so too does your consciousness hold the blueprint for infinite possibilities. But what happens when we align ourselves with these universal patterns? To answer this question, Elena shared a personal story. During a retreat in Sedona, Arizona, she'd spent hours meditating inside a vortex, a site believed to amplify spiritual energy. As she visualized the flower of life expanding outward from her heart, she felt an overwhelming sense of connection, not just to the earth beneath her, but to the cosmos above. Days later, synchronicities began unfolding in her life, unexpected opportunities, meaningful encounters, and moments of profound insight. It wasn't magic, she reflected. It was resonance. By attuning myself to universal frequencies encoded in sacred geometry, I became a conduit for their expression. Biophotons, light as information carriers. Next, Elena delved into the emerging field of biophotonics, the study of light emitted by living organisms. Scientists have discovered that cells communicate using ultra-weak photons, often referred to as biophotons. These particles of light carry information essential for regulating biological functions, from DNA repair to immune response. What if our bodies are more than flesh and bone? She mused. What if they're vessels of light, constantly exchanging data with the environment? To illustrate, she cited experiments conducted by Dr. Fritz Albert Popp, a pioneer in biophoton research. His team found that healthy cells emitted coherent light, organized and rhythmic, while diseased cells produced chaotic signals. Furthermore, external stimuli such as intention, meditation, and exposure to certain frequencies could enhance or disrupt this coherence. Elena connected this finding to energy healing practices like Reiki and acupuncture, which emphasize restoring balance to the body's energetic systems. When a healer channels light into someone's biofield, they may be amplifying the recipient's natural photonic emissions, promoting self-healing, she hypothesized. She also highlighted practical applications for readers eager to harness the power of light. For instance, spending time outdoors during sunrise or sunset exposes the body to full-spectrum sunlight, which has been shown to boost serotonin production and regulate circadian rhythms. Similarly, working with crystals like clear quartz or amethyst can amplify ambient light frequencies, creating a supportive energetic environment. Intentionality, the bridge between thought and form. While sacred geometry and biophotonics provided fascinating insights, Elena knew that true transformation required action. She turned her attention to the role of intention in manifesting material outcomes, a theme explored earlier in the book, but now reframed through the lens of bridging spirit and matter. Thought alone isn't enough, she emphasized. You must couple it with focused will and emotional alignment. Think of intention as the architect's blueprint and emotion as the builder's tools. Together, they construct the edifice of reality. To demonstrate, she recounted a collaboration with Daniel, who had recently embarked on a project to secure funding for his graduate research. Despite initial setbacks, he'd begun applying the principles of vibrational alignment discussed in previous chapters. Each morning, he visualized himself presenting his findings at conferences, feeling the pride and excitement of success. Simultaneously, he addressed limiting beliefs by journaling about past achievements and affirming his worthiness. Within weeks, Daniel received an email from a professor offering mentorship and access to grant resources. While skeptics might attribute this to coincidence, Elena saw it as evidence of principle. When Daniel aligned his thoughts, emotions, and actions with his goal, he collapsed probabilities into tangible results. Creating sacred space, a practical guide. To empower readers to integrate these concepts into daily life, Elena included a step-by-step guide for creating a sacred space, a physical representation of the bridge between spirit and matter. Here's how. 1. Choose your location. Select a quiet corner of your home where you won't be disturbed. Ideally, it should feel inviting and conducive to reflection. 2. Incorporate natural elements. Add plants, stones, shells, or other items from nature to connect with Earth's energies. Consider placing a bowl of water to symbolize fluidity and purification. 3. Use crystals and symbols. Arrange crystals like rose quartz for love or black tourmaline for protection around the area. Include symbols of personal significance such as mandalas, runes, or images of deities. 4. Enhance with light and sound. Use candles, fairy lights, or Himalayan salt lamps to infuse warmth. Play soothing music or chants to elevate vibrations. 5. Set clear intentions. Before entering your sacred space, state your purpose aloud. For example, I come here to cultivate peace, or "This is my portal for creativity." By dedicating a specific area to spiritual practice, readers could anchor their intentions in physical form, making them easier to access and sustain. Daniel's revelation, becoming the bridge. Later that week, Elena invited Daniel to join her in activating his newly created sacred space. They met in his apartment, where he transformed a small alcove into a serene retreat adorned with candles, crystals, and a hand-drawn flower of life taped to the wall. After guiding him through a brief grounding exercise, Elena encouraged him to sit quietly and observe any sensations or insights that arose. "I feel grounded," Daniel admitted after several minutes. "Like I'm rooted in something bigger than myself." "That's because you are," Elena replied. "Your sacred space acts as a mirror, reflecting your inner state back to you. When you nurture it, you nurture yourself, and vice versa." Inspired, Daniel decided to take things a step further. He retrieved a notebook and began sketching ideas for integrating sacred geometry into his research presentations. If patterns like the flower of life resonate universally, he reasoned, maybe they'll help others understand my work better. Elena smiled knowingly. That's the beauty of bridging spirit and matter. Once you recognize the connections, you start seeing them everywhere. Conclusion: walking the middle path. As Elena wrapped up her chapter, she reflected on the delicate dance between opposites, spirit and matter, thought and form, light and shadow. Reality isn't binary, she wrote. It's a spectrum, a continuum where everything exists in a relationship. By embracing both poles, we transcend duality and step into wholeness. She envisioned her readers navigating this middle path, not as passive observers, but as active participants in co-creating their realities. By mastering the art of alignment, they could dissolve barriers between worlds, fostering harmony within and without. The universe doesn't distinguish between spirit and matter, she concluded. Neither should you. Trust the process, honor the patterns, and watch as bridges appear where once there were divides. With those final words, Elena closed her journal, feeling a deep sense of completion. This chapter wasn't just an exploration of sacred geometry and biophotons. It was a call to awaken to the interconnectedness of all things. And as she prepared to share it with the world, she knew it would inspire others to walk the middle path, forging new connections between the seen and unseen. 9. The science of gratitude, rewiring your brain for abundance. The late afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows of Elena's home office, casting golden streaks across her desk. She sat surrounded by stacks of research papers, open books, and half-empty cups of tea, her laptop glowing softly in the fading light. Her mind was alive with ideas, buzzing like a hive of bees eager to find their way out into the world. Today, she would tackle one of the most transformative yet underappreciated tools for awakening: gratitude. Elena had always been fascinated by how something as simple as saying thank you could ripple outward, reshaping not only individual lives but entire communities. Yet, gratitude wasn't just a feel-good practice. It was rooted in neuroscience, psychology, and even quantum mechanics. If she could distill its essence and present it in a way that resonated with her intellectually curious audience, they might begin to see it not as an obligation, but as a powerful catalyst for change. She took a deep breath, letting the weight of this realization settle over her. Then, opening a fresh document on her laptop, she began typing. This chapter wouldn't just explain the science behind gratitude. It would invite readers to experience its alchemy firsthand. And perhaps in doing so, they would uncover the abundance hidden within every moment. Neuroplasticity, rewiring the brain for positivity. Elena started with the foundation of modern neuroscience, neuroplasticity. For decades, Scientists believed the adult brain was fixed, incapable of significant change after childhood. But groundbreaking research has since revealed that our brains are far more adaptable than previously thought. Every thought, emotion, and action creates neural pathways, like trails carved into a forest floor, and repeated activity strengthens these connections over time. When you focus on gratitude, Elena wrote, you're essentially training your brain to notice positive stimuli. Over time, this rewires your neural circuitry, making it easier to access feelings of joy, contentment, and optimism. To illustrate, she referenced studies conducted at institutions like Harvard University and the Greater Good Science Center. In one experiment, participants were asked to write down 3 things they were grateful for each day for a month. MRI scans showed increased activity in regions associated with emotional regulation, empathy, and reward processing. Even more striking, these changes persisted long after the study ended, suggesting lasting benefits. But what happens when we neglect gratitude? Elena turned to research on negativity bias, the tendency for humans to prioritize negative experiences over positive ones. Evolutionarily speaking, this made sense. Our ancestors needed to be hyper-aware of threats to survive. However, in today's world, unchecked negativity can trap us in cycles of stress, anxiety, and scarcity thinking. Gratitude acts as a counterbalance, she explained. By consciously focusing on what's working in your life, you shift your attention away from lack and toward abundance. Dopamine loops, the chemistry of reward. Next, Elena explored the role of neurotransmitters in reinforcing gratitude practices. Specifically, she highlighted dopamine, a chemical messenger responsible for pleasure, motivation, and reinforcement. When we express gratitude, whether through journaling, verbal acknowledgement, or silent reflection, our brains release small bursts of dopamine, creating a feedback loop that encourages repetition. It's like giving yourself a neurological pat on the back. She quipped, each time you acknowledge something you're thankful for, your brain says, hey, let's do that again. To make this concept relatable, Elena shared a story about her friend Rachel, a graphic designer struggling with burnout. After months of feeling overwhelmed and uninspired, Rachel decided to try a gratitude challenge recommended by a colleague. Each evening before bed, she wrote down 5 things she appreciated about her day, no matter how small. At first, it felt forced. But within weeks, she noticed subtle shifts. Colors seemed brighter, conversations richer, challenges less daunting. I realized I'd been looking at life through a foggy lens, Rachel later told Elena. Gratitude cleared the haze, helping me see opportunities instead of obstacles. Elena connected this anecdote to research on resilience. Studies have shown that individuals who regularly practice gratitude exhibit higher levels of psychological well-being, stronger immune systems, and greater capacity to cope with adversity. By cultivating appreciation for the present moment, they create a buffer against future hardships. Quantum resonance, amplifying positive frequencies. While neuroscientific insights provided a solid foundation, Elena knew her readers craved deeper connections between gratitude and universal principles. She turned to quantum mechanics, drawing parallels between the observer effect and the act of giving thanks. When you express gratitude, she wrote, you collapse probabilities into possibilities. Instead of focusing on what's missing, you amplify what's already present, aligning yourself with frequencies of abundance. To clarify, she referenced experiments exploring non-local consciousness, the idea that thoughts and intentions can influence distant systems. One study involved participants directing healing energy toward water samples miles away. Remarkably, treated water showed measurable changes in molecular structure compared to untreated controls. While skeptics dismissed these findings as coincidence, Elena saw them as evidence of principle. Focused intention amplifies energetic resonance. She encouraged readers to view gratitude as a form of intentional observation. Every time you say thank you, she explained, you're collapsing wave functions of possibility into tangible outcomes. You're telling the universe, this is what I want more of. Practical applications. Cultivating daily gratitude. To empower readers to integrate gratitude into their daily routines, Elena outlined several evidence-based techniques. 1. Gratitude journaling. Spend 5 minutes each day writing down 3 things you're thankful for. Be specific. For example, instead of "I'm grateful for my family," write, "I'm grateful for the laughter we shared during dinner." 2. Mental snapshots. Throughout the day, pause to mentally capture moments of appreciation. Imagine taking a photograph with your mind and storing it for later reflection. 3. Verbal acknowledgement. Express gratitude directly to others. Whether thanking a coworker for their support or complimenting a stranger's kindness, vocalizing appreciation strengthens social bonds. For gratitude walks, take a mindful stroll, noticing details in your surroundings. Focus on sights, sounds, and sensations that evoke gratitude. For instance, the rustle of leaves or the warmth of sunlight. 5. Visualization exercises. Close your eyes and picture yourself surrounded by a field of golden light. With each inhale, imagine drawing gratitude into your body. With each exhale, send it outward to those around you. For those seeking a more immersive experience, Elena included guided meditations designed to deepen the practice. Imagine stepping into a room filled with everyone who has positively impacted your life, she suggested. Feel their presence, hear their voices, and silently thank them for their contributions. Notice how this fills you with warmth and connection. Daniel's transformation from scarcity to sufficiency. Later that week, Elena invited Daniel to join her in a gratitude-focused exercise. They met in her garden, where autumn leaves danced in the breeze, and the air carried the crisp scent of impending frost. After guiding him through a brief meditation to center his mind, she handed him a notebook. For the next 10 minutes, she instructed, write down everything you're grateful for. Don't censor yourself, just let the words flow. At first, Daniel hesitated, pen hovering uncertainly above the page. But as he began writing, his initial reluctance gave way to clarity. He listed simple pleasures: his morning coffee, the sound of rain on his window, the supportive texts from friends during tough times. Each entry sparked a cascade of memories, filling him with unexpected warmth. When the timer chimed, Elena encouraged him to review his list and select one item to focus on intensely. Close your eyes, she said, and imagine stepping into that moment. Feel the emotions tied to it: joy, relief, pride. Let those feelings anchor the experience in your consciousness. Afterward, Daniel admitted feeling surprisingly energized. It's strange, he confessed. I've written lists like this before, but something about doing it this way feels different. Like I'm actually participating in the process, instead of just going through the motions. Elena smiled knowingly. That's because you are. You're collapsing probabilities into possibilities, and possibilities into reality. Conclusion: embracing abundance in every moment. As Elena concluded her chapter, she reflected on the profound simplicity of gratitude, not as a passive state, but as an active choice. Life is a mosaic of moments, she wrote. Some shine brightly, others fade into shadow. Gratitude invites us to linger in the light, savoring its brilliance. She envisioned her readers embracing this perspective, not as passive recipients of fate, but as active creators of their realities. By mastering the art of gratitude, they could transcend limitations and step boldly into their highest potentials. The universe speaks in frequencies, she finished. Tune yours wisely and watch as harmony unfolds. With those final words, Elena saved her document, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. This chapter wasn't just an exploration of gratitude. It was a call to action. And as she prepared to share it with the world, she knew it would inspire others to embrace their roles as conscious creators of reality. Part 4. Integration and Application. All journeys culminate in arrival, yet the destination here is unlike any other. In Part 4, we transition from theory to practice, weaving together the myriad threads explored throughout the book into a cohesive tapestry of action and insight. Think of this final stretch as climbing a mountain whose peak offers panoramic views of everything you've traversed below. Now armed with knowledge spanning quantum mechanics, consciousness studies, and energy dynamics, you stand poised to integrate these principles into your daily life. But integration is no passive process. It requires courage, commitment, and creativity. Through guided exercises, reflective prompts, and actionable strategies, this section equips you to live authentically as the quantum soul, embodying unity, purpose, and infinite potential. We conclude with a clarion call to embrace your role as a co-creator of reality, urging you to take one small, meaningful step toward alignment with universal truths. As the pages draw to a close, remember, the story doesn't end here. It continues with you, unfolding in ways limited only by the breadth of your imagination. 10. Living as the Quantum Soul, a new paradigm for awakening. The first light of dawn spilled through the cracks in Elena's curtains, painting her bedroom walls with soft hues of amber and rose. She lay still for a moment, eyes closed, savoring the quiet before the day began. This was her favorite time, a liminal space where dreams lingered like whispers and possibilities stretched endlessly ahead. But today, her mind wasn't resting. It raced with fragments of conversations, experiments, and insights from the past weeks. She had reached the culmination of her journey, the point where all threads converged, living as the quantum soul. Elena sat up slowly, pulling her knees to her chest and wrapping herself in the warmth of her blanket. The phrase echoed in her mind, quantum soul. What did it mean to truly embody this idea? To move beyond intellectual understanding and step fully into the role of co-creator, aligning one's thoughts, emotions, and actions with universal truths? These were the questions she needed to answer, not just for herself, but for her readers, who had traveled alongside her through the labyrinth of science and spirituality. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over her shoulders. Then, rising from bed, she padded barefoot to her study. Her laptop awaited on the desk, its screen glowing faintly against the dim morning light. As she opened a fresh document, she imagined herself speaking directly to Daniel, the skeptical yet increasingly curious graduate student who had become an integral part of her narrative. If she could guide him to integrate these principles into his daily life, she knew others would follow suit. Synthesis, from theory to practice. Elena began by weaving together the key themes explored throughout the book: quantum mechanics, interconnectedness, manifestation, energy healing, and gratitude. Each concept, she explained, was not an isolated thread but part of a larger tapestry that defined the human experience. To live as the quantum soul, she wrote, is to recognize yourself as both particle and wave, observer and observed, spirit and matter. You are simultaneously unique and universal, finite and infinite. By embracing this paradox, you unlock your capacity to shape reality. But how does one translate such abstract ideas into concrete action? Elena turned to research on behavior change, highlighting the importance of incremental shifts over dramatic transformations. Awakening isn't a single event, it's a process, she emphasized. It begins with small, consistent practices that gradually rewire your perception and align you with higher frequencies. To illustrate, she revisited earlier chapters, drawing connections between seemingly disparate concepts. 1. Quantum mechanics and mindfulness. Just as particles exist in superposition until measured, so too do our lives unfold based on focused attention. Practicing mindfulness helps collapse probabilities into desired outcomes. 2. Interconnectedness and compassion. Recognizing entanglement fosters empathy, reminding us that every action ripples outward, affecting the collective whole. 3. Manifestation and emotional alignment. Aligning your vibrational frequency with your goals requires cultivating corresponding emotions, bridging thought and form. 4. Energy healing and self-care. Viewing the body as a biofield invites holistic approaches to well-being, blending ancient wisdom with modern science. 5. Gratitude and neuroplasticity. Rewiring the brain for positivity amplifies abundance, creating a feedback loop that sustains growth. Each principle reinforced the others, forming a cohesive framework for living authentically and purposefully. A day in the life of the quantum soul. To make these ideas tangible, Elena crafted a fictionalized account of what living as the quantum soul might look like in practice. She envisioned a typical day for someone committed to this paradigm shift. Morning rituals. The alarm buzzes softly at 6 a.m. Instead of reaching for her phone, Sarah stretches luxuriously, taking 3 deep breaths to ground herself in the present moment. She steps onto her yoga mat, flowing through sun salutations while visualizing golden light filling her body. Afterward, she sits cross-legged, journaling about 3 things she's grateful for and setting an intention for the day. For example, I will approach challenges with curiosity. Commute meditation. On her way to work, Sarah listens to binaural beats tuned to 528 Hz, known as the miracle tone for its healing properties. She imagines this frequency harmonizing her biofield, dissolving any residual tension from the night before. Workplace interactions. During a team meeting, Sarah notices frustration bubbling up when a colleague criticizes her proposal. Instead of reacting defensively, she pauses, placing a hand over her heart and silently repeating, "I am calm and open to learning." This simple act diffuses her stress, allowing her to respond constructively. Lunch break reflection. Over a nourishing meal, Sarah reflects on moments of connection throughout the morning, a kind word from a stranger, a supportive email from her manager. She acknowledges these instances, reinforcing neural pathways associated with positivity. Evening wind down. Back home, Sarah spends 10 minutes meditating, imagining herself surrounded by a field of light. She expresses gratitude for the day's lessons, no matter how challenging they may have been. Before bed, she writes down 3 intentions for tomorrow, pairing each with a corresponding emotion, e.g., excitement for a new project. By embedding these practices into everyday routines, Sarah exemplifies the integration of quantum principles into real life. Her story serves as a blueprint for readers eager to embark on their own journeys of awakening. Daniel's Leap, Embracing Paradox. Later that week, Elena invited Daniel to join her for a reflective exercise designed to synthesize everything they'd discussed. They met in her garden, where autumn leaves swirled in the breeze, and the air carried the crisp scent of impending frost. After guiding him through a brief grounding meditation, she handed him a pen and notebook. For the next 15 minutes, she instructed, write freely about what it means to live as the quantum soul. Don't censor yourself, just let the words flow. At first, Daniel hesitated, unsure where to begin. But as he started writing, clarity emerged. He described moments of synchronicity that had unfolded since adopting practices like visualization and gratitude. He reflected on how shifting his perspective from scarcity to sufficiency had transformed his relationships and career prospects. And he acknowledged the paradoxical nature of existence, being both individual and interconnected, finite and infinite. When the timer chimed, Elena encouraged him to share his reflections aloud. Living as the quantum soul means embracing uncertainty, he said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his words. It means trusting that even when I don't have all the answers, I'm exactly where I need to be. Elena nodded approvingly. That's the essence of awakening, to hold space for paradox without needing resolution. To dance between logic and intuition, knowing that truth exists in the interplay. Conclusion: becoming co-creators of reality. As Elena wrapped up her chapter, she reflected on the transformative power of living as the quantum soul, not as passive observers, but as active participants in co-creating reality. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself, she wrote. Every thought, emotion, and action contributes to the grand symphony of existence. She envisioned her readers stepping into this paradigm, not as seekers of perfection, but as explorers of possibility. By mastering the art of alignment, they could transcend limitations and step boldly into their highest potentials. The universe doesn't distinguish between spirit and matter, she concluded. Neither should you. Trust the process, honor the patterns, and watch as bridges appear where once there were divides. With those final words, Elena saved her document, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. This chapter wasn't just a synthesis of earlier themes. It was a roadmap for transformation. And as she prepared to share it with the world, she knew it would inspire others to embrace their roles as conscious creators of reality. 11. Conclusion: becoming co-creators of reality. The first light of dawn spilled through the cracks in Elena's curtains, painting her bedroom walls with soft hues of amber and rose. She lay still for a moment, eyes closed, savoring the quiet before the day began. This was her favorite time, a liminal space where dreams lingered like whispers and possibilities stretched endlessly ahead. But today, her mind wasn't resting. It raced with fragments of conversations, experiments, and insights from the past weeks. She had reached the culmination of her journey, the point where all threads converged, becoming co-creators of reality. Elena sat up slowly, pulling her knees to her chest and wrapping herself in the warmth of her blanket. The phrase echoed in her mind: co-creator. What did it mean to truly embody this idea? To move beyond intellectual understanding and step fully into the role of shaping existence? These were the questions she needed to answer, not just for herself, but for her readers, who had traveled alongside her through the labyrinth of science and spirituality. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over her shoulders. Then, rising from bed, she padded barefoot to her study. Her laptop awaited on the desk, its screen glowing faintly against the dim morning light. As she opened a fresh document, she imagined herself speaking directly to Daniel, the skeptical yet increasingly curious graduate student who had become an integral part of her narrative. If she could guide him to embrace his role as a co-creator, she knew others would follow suit. The symphony of existence, a unified perspective. Elena began by framing the human experience as a symphony, an intricate interplay of notes, rhythms, and harmonies that together create something far greater than the sum of its parts. You are both the musician and the instrument, she wrote. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions compose melodies that resonate throughout the universe. When aligned with universal frequencies, these melodies amplify abundance, connection, and transformation. To ground this poetic metaphor in science, She referenced research on synchronicity, the phenomenon described by Carl Jung as meaningful coincidences that defy conventional explanation. While skeptics dismissed synchronicities as mere chance, Elena saw them as evidence of principle. When individuals align their intentions with universal flow, seemingly unrelated events converge in ways that feel divinely orchestrated. She shared a personal example. During a particularly challenging phase in her career, Elena had set an ambitious goal, publishing her research in a prestigious journal. Instead of fixating on the outcome, she focused on embodying the qualities she associated with success: curiosity, resilience, and collaboration. Each morning, she visualized herself thriving in academic settings, feeling the pride and fulfillment of accomplishment. Simultaneously, she addressed limiting beliefs through cognitive reframing exercises. Within weeks, opportunities began unfolding unexpectedly. A colleague recommended her work to an editor, leading to an invitation to submit a paper. While skeptics might dismiss this as coincidence, Elena saw it as evidence of principle. When she aligned her internal state with her aspirations, the universe responded accordingly. For readers eager to harness this process, Elena outlined a step-by-step guide. 1. Clarify your vision. Define what you want to create, ensuring it aligns with your values and higher purpose. 2. Cultivate emotional resonance. Pair your vision with corresponding emotions, for example, excitement for a new project or peace for a resolution. 3. Take inspired action. Trust your intuition, following opportunities that feel aligned with your goals. 4. Release attachment to outcomes. Surrender control, allowing the universe to orchestrate events in ways you may not anticipate. 5. Practice gratitude. Acknowledge every step forward, reinforcing positive momentum. By combining intentionality with surrender, readers could navigate the delicate balance between effort and flow, creating harmony between their desires and the unfolding of reality. Daniel's final step: committing to awakening. Later that week, Elena invited Daniel to join her for a closing ritual designed to solidify everything they'd explored together. They met in her meditation studio, where candles flickered softly and the scent of sandalwood incense filled the air. After guiding him through a grounding exercise, she handed him a crystal-clear quartz point. "This represents your connection to universal intelligence," she explained. "Hold it close and reflect on everything you've learned. What commitments will you make moving forward?" Daniel closed his eyes, cradling the crystal in his palms. For several minutes, he sat silently, breathing deeply. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a newfound conviction. "I commit to embracing uncertainty," he said, "to trusting that even when I don't have all the answers, I'm exactly where I need to be. I commit to cultivating gratitude, compassion, and curiosity. And I commit to taking inspired action, knowing that my choices ripple outward, affecting the collective whole." Elena smiled warmly, her heart swelling with pride. That's the essence of becoming a co-creator: to hold space for paradox without needing resolution, to dance between logic and intuition, knowing that truth exists in the interplay. A call to action, awakening to infinite potential. As Elena concluded her chapter, she reflected on the transformative power of embracing one's role as a co-creator, not as a passive recipient of fate, but as an active participant in shaping reality. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself, she wrote. Every thought, emotion, and action contributes to the grand symphony of existence. She envisioned her readers stepping into this paradigm, not as seekers of perfection, but as explorers of possibility. By mastering the art of alignment, they could transcend limitations and step boldly into their highest potentials. The universe doesn't distinguish between spirit and matter, she finished. Neither should you. Trust the process, honor the patterns, and watch as bridges appear where once there were divides. With those words, Elena closed her notebook, feeling a profound sense of completion. This chapter wasn't just a conclusion, it was a call to action. And as she prepared to share it with the world, she knew it would inspire others to awaken to their infinite potential. Final reflections, leaving a legacy of awakening. Before sending the manuscript off to her editor, Elena paused to reflect on the journey she'd undertaken. Writing this book had been more than an intellectual exercise. It had been a deeply personal exploration of her own awakening. Through each chapter, she confronted doubts, fears, and uncertainties, emerging stronger and more aligned with her purpose. She thought of Daniel, whose skepticism had softened into curiosity, then blossomed into conviction. His transformation reminded her of why she had embarked on this path in the first place, to offer others a bridge between science and spirituality, logic and intuition, doubt and faith. As she gazed out the window at the rising sun, Elena felt a surge of gratitude for the challenges that had shaped her, the connections that had sustained her, and the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. This book wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who dared to step into their roles as quantum souls, co-creating a reality infused with meaning, wonder, and love. Conclusion. Awakening to the infinite potential within. The late afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows of Elena's home office, casting golden streaks across her desk. She sat surrounded by stacks of research papers, open books, and half-empty cups of tea, her laptop glowing softly in the fading light. Her mind was alive with ideas, buzzing like bees eager to find their way into the world. Today, she would write the final words of her book, a culmination of months of exploration, experimentation, and reflection. This wasn't just an ending, it was a beginning, an invitation for readers to step fully into their roles as conscious creators of reality. Elena took a deep breath, letting the weight of this realization settle over her. Then, opening a fresh document on her laptop, she began typing. These concluding words wouldn't merely summarize, they would inspire. They would call her readers to action, urging them to embrace their infinite potential and awaken to the truth of who they are, quantum souls. The journey so far, a tapestry of insights. As Elena reflected on the chapters that had come before, she marveled at how each thread, quantum mechanics, interconnectedness, manifestation, energy healing, gratitude, and the observer effect, had woven together to form a cohesive tapestry. What started as abstract concepts rooted in science and spirituality had evolved into practical tools for transformation. Together, these principles painted a picture of existence that was both deeply personal and profoundly universal. To live as the quantum soul, she wrote, is to recognize yourself as both particle and wave, observer and observed, spirit and matter. You are simultaneously unique and universal, finite and infinite. By embracing this paradox, you unlock your capacity to shape reality. But awakening isn't a destination, it's a process. It requires courage, curiosity, and consistency. It demands that we hold space for uncertainty while trusting in the unfolding of life. And most importantly, it invites us to see ourselves not as passive observers, but as active participants in co-creating our realities. A call to action, stepping into your power. Elena paused, imagining her readers sitting across from her, intellectual seekers hungry for deeper understanding, skeptics yearning for evidence-based insights, and spiritual explorers craving practical wisdom. To each of them, she offered a challenge. Take one small step today, she urged. Whether it's practicing gratitude, visualizing your dreams, or simply observing your thoughts without judgment, commit to aligning yourself with higher frequencies. Trust that even the smallest actions ripple outward, influencing the collective whole. She shared a final story to drive this point home. During a retreat focused on mindfulness and self-compassion, Elena met a woman named Rachel who struggled with chronic anxiety. For years, Rachel had felt trapped in cycles of fear and self-doubt, convinced she lacked control over her circumstances. But after learning about the observer effect and neuroplasticity, she decided to try something new. Each morning, Rachel spent 5 minutes visualizing herself calm and confident, feeling the emotions tied to those states. Simultaneously, she addressed limiting beliefs through journaling exercises. Within weeks, subtle shifts began to emerge. She noticed moments of clarity where once there had been chaos. Challenges that once seemed insurmountable now felt manageable. By aligning her thoughts, emotions, and actions with her aspirations, Rachel had collapsed probabilities into tangible outcomes. This isn't magic, Elena emphasized. It's physics. Just as entangled particles respond instantly regardless of distance, so too can human consciousness interact with matter in ways we're only beginning to understand. For readers eager to embark on their own journeys, Elena included a final checklist. 1. Cultivate awareness. Practice mindfulness daily, observing your thoughts and emotions without attachment. 2. Set clear intentions. Define what you want to create, ensuring it aligns with your values and higher purpose. 3. Align emotions. Pair your intentions with corresponding feelings, for example, joy for abundance or peace for resolution. 4. Take inspired action. Follow opportunities that resonate with your goals, trusting your intuition along the way. 5. Release control. Surrender attachment to specific outcomes, allowing the universe to orchestrate events in ways you may not anticipate. 6. Practice gratitude. Acknowledge every step forward, reinforcing positive momentum. By integrating these practices into daily life, readers could navigate the delicate balance between effort and flow, creating harmony between their desires and the unfolding of reality. Daniel's transformation from skeptic to believer. Later that week, Elena invited Daniel to join her for a reflective exercise designed to synthesize everything they'd discussed. They met in her garden, where autumn leaves swirled in the breeze, and the air carried the crisp scent of impending frost. After guiding him through a brief grounding meditation, she handed him a pen and notebook. For the next 15 minutes, she instructed, write freely about what it means to live as the quantum soul. Don't censor yourself, just let the words flow. At first, Daniel hesitated, unsure where to begin. But as he started writing, clarity emerged. He described moments of synchronicity that had unfolded since adopting practices like visualization and gratitude. He reflected on how shifting his perspective from scarcity to sufficiency had transformed his relationships and career prospects. And he acknowledged the paradoxical nature of existence, being both individual and interconnected, finite and infinite. When the timer chimed, Elena encouraged him to share his reflections aloud. Living as the quantum soul means embracing uncertainty, he said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his words. It means trusting that even when I don't have all the answers, I'm exactly where I need to be. Elena nodded approvingly. That's the essence of awakening, to hold space for paradox without needing resolution. To dance between logic and intuition, knowing that truth exists in the interplay. Final words, embracing the infinite. As Elena wrapped up her conclusion, she reflected on the transformative power of living as the quantum soul, not as passive observers, but as active participants in co-creating reality. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself, she wrote. Every thought, emotion, and action contributes to the grand symphony of existence. She envisioned her readers stepping into this paradigm, not as seekers of perfection, but as explorers of possibility. By mastering the art of alignment, they could transcend limitations and step boldly into their highest potential. The universe doesn't distinguish between spirit and matter, she finished. Neither should you. Trust the process, honor the patterns, and watch as bridges appear where once there were divides. With those final words, Elena saved her document, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. This conclusion wasn't just a summary, it was a call to action. She prepared to share it with the world. She knew it would inspire others to awaken to their infinite potential. Epilogue: The Ripple Effect. Before sending the manuscript to her editor, Elena paused to reflect on the journey she'd undertaken. Writing this book had been more than an intellectual exercise. It had been a deeply personal exploration of her own awakening. Through each chapter, she confronted doubts, fears, and uncertainties, emerging stronger and more aligned with her purpose. She thought of Daniel, whose skepticism had softened into curiosity, then blossomed into conviction. His transformation reminded her of why she had embarked on this path in the first place: to offer others a bridge between science and spirituality, logic and intuition, doubt and faith. As she gazed out the window at the rising sun, Elena felt a surge of gratitude for the challenges that had shaped her, the connections that had sustained her, and the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. This book wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who dared to step into their roles as quantum souls, co-creating a reality infused with meaning, wonder, and love. This authorized audiobook of The Quantum Soul, Bridging Science and Spirituality for Awakening 6, Cosmic Soul Journey, Book 7, is presented by Soul Sanctuary Audio. Copyright Seraphina Hartwell. For the update audiobook, click Follow Soul Sanctuary Audio.